Hey,
Hey, can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure it's the right audio channel though.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, are you able to share also?
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is probably better.
Oh yeah, I can hear you a little clear.
Looks
Hey,
like
Patrice.
looks like Liz might be having audio trouble.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we could try and connect to the other one. Hey, Liz.
Hey, good morning. How are you? Sorry.
Nah, it's all good.
Good morning. Wow.
You don't even want to know about how my week has been, and it's like only
No.
Tuesday, and I'm like,
Oh
I can't
no.
promise you that this is tea in this cup. There's no one else
Uh-huh.
sharing.
I 100% just took a nap. I needed it, and I didn't do anything today. I'm dying. This has been a long week. How's work going? Busy.
It's going. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. I am still alive, so that's very positive. Definitely jumped back into work with like the last project I was on was like really short. I just had to do some like SME work. Actually, David, you'll get a kick out of this. It was for a generative AI project. One of my clients is trying to put some guardrails up around their Gen AI usage, and so they kind of onboarded me to do some security risks and controls or to put in place around it, and then it was very, very quick, and now I'm on to something new. But yeah, it's crazy, this new thing. I'm trying to organize like a bunch of different work streams across like 10 different countries, and it is an absolute like craziness. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it sounds intense. Hey, Carla, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. I keep like trying to think about the year, right? Like what the plans are for the rest of the year. I just can't get over how fast everything's going. Like August is booked, September, right? With the kids and visiting people.
Man, I gotta tell you, I realized the other day that my little one will be 6 months old in 2 weeks, and I almost like flipped because I can't believe it's been 6 months since February.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
David, you did say you're able to share, right? I don't know if you had.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
So, how do you want to
I'll
proceed?
I was gonna say I'll introduce you. We're gonna wait a couple minutes. Usually people like 8:05, and then I'll introduce you quickly, and then you could just get going. I
For
know a
how
lot
long?
like no, there's no like real set in stone.
What would you like?
Anything. I don't usually we max out at an hour just because it's
Yeah.
late, everyone's busy. But yeah,
So,
because I know you'll have like demos and stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
you know a lot of what I know, so feel free to prompt me in
Okay.
in a particular topic if you think it would be pertinent.
Yeah.
I left to my own proclivities, I may be going down some rabbit hole that you might say, you know what, these guys may be better off if we talk about this. So
Okay. Awesome.
I'll leave that
Yeah.
in your capable hands.
I was gonna say, yeah, definitely just like touch on how you started and how like we talked about before.
The audience in terms of what level of
All over.
yeah, okay, how much.
Like students all the way to people who've been doing I don't know about AI. I feel like I don't know. Liz, do you know if we have a lot of like I don't think people job
Yeah, that's
wise, like
specifically
career
how much have
wise.
they touched GPT. I want to know what should I talk about.
Yeah. You can ask that in the
I would
beginning.
I
Yeah.
would say, yeah, I would start entry level for GPT. Most folks, I would guess, have either used it in the free version or
Okay.
haven't used it at all yet.
Because for me, the way I was able to, they've done some studies recently that certain people get like, 100x productivity out of the tool. And so I feel like I'm one of those people. And one of the reasons why is because I have kind of like just a clean slate approach, understanding of how it works, but a fundamental understanding like from Wolfram that I can articulate a bit. I think in the first 10, 15 minutes, I think that might be valuable. At least I think you remember it, that
Yeah.
presentation. And then
No, yeah, it'd be
move,
great. It would
and
be
then I'll
great
move
to get
into what
going on
I've
that.
done. Yeah, yeah. And then I'll move into what I've so
Actually, David, you laugh on the plane. Back.
host disabled participant sharing. Let me get that out of the way. So there's
Okay.
a setting that needs to.
Oh, okay.
Um, let's see here. Okay. All right, try again, David. I think you should be all set.
Yeah, it's working now. So, do you want me to just go ahead and get going, Elise? Or, oh, you said you would. I'm sorry. I'll allow you.
No, 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 it's okay. I was gonna say we can. Oh, so we think we'll do like 2 more minutes and then. Yeah, because sometimes people trickle in a bit.
I will just share a YouTube video in chat that I think is interesting, but I also don't think that we should just sit here and watch YouTube together. It's Palantir. It's a AI military defense company. They have some demos of some technology. They've been in the news recently. But that link is a link that I've shown to Elise, and I thought y'all might enjoy looking at it. Elise, what did you call it? You called it Blue Force Tracking?
Oh yeah, the blue. It's like along the reference, like blue force tracking, magnified, like hyperflex with it. It's actually really interesting.
Yeah, like down to the what armament does this unit of four in this APU have, APC? Like, and how many clips each? But also their medical information, and not personal, but in terms of like adequate to take out the mission at hand versus another group. All kinds of data at the fingertips of the Blue Force tracking. So pretty cool stuff. At I'll just share that link in there.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, we can get going. It's recorded too, so I know a lot of people watch that if subs came up today. But all right, so I'll start with thanks for joining, everyone. Really appreciate it. We have David talking today. David's actually one of my coworkers. Currently work at Palo Alto together. So I've experienced firsthand how amazing David's mind is, and thankfully he's helped introduce a lot of some awesome products to me. And one of them was ChatGPT. So today's talk will be very interesting. So any questions, like make sure you ask or anything, because it's a fun learning experience together. So thanks, David. Really appreciate it.
Mhm. So the idea is go through the learning journey of how I understand the tool and then what kind of I've been able to do with it. So sort of the learning objectives of sort of the first half will be just an understanding of what actually, how does the model work? How does this generative AI thing work? That black box. Because if you actually understand how it works, the output that you receive from it, you can kind of understand what it's producing, and then more importantly, what little changes you need to make in order to tweak the output to be more in line with what you were imagining, what you were trying to produce, your current work task. So that'll be language statistics, that'll be neural nets, the notion of attractors, it'll be some machine learning, and then looking at some GPT results, and then how I began to leverage GPT to deliver certain things. I built a company called Catalyst AI that we'll get to. So here's some fun memes. Born too late to explore Earth, born too early to explore the galaxy, but born just in time to witness the birth of the machine god. This one is interesting because these two are interesting because GPT actually suggested them for itself when it was asked, what's a meme about what's it like to be GPT? So this is GPT having to deal with humans every day, Ben Affleck smoking a cigarette. And then this one is where, you know, a user comes in to ask a very extremely complicated, like, how do I make $1 billion company in 4 months? And here's one does not simply just make $1 billion company in 4 months, right? So, and then here's kind of another meme is, what is my purpose? You pass butter. Oh my God, that's all you do is GPT just generates words. It's all it does. It just generates parts of words at a time, but it's remarkable what the emergent properties of that simple model can do, from arithmetic to code. And this slide this is an older movie called Real Genius with Val Kilmer. And essentially, the reason I included it is if anyone has seen this movie, this gentleman is sort of the professor mastermind who is also working with the military industrial complex to build a secret space laser that could vaporize a human from space. And this is the unwitting post grad working on his thesis or whatever and lasers. And he's just so eager to do whatever to please him that he'll shine this big mirror perfectly, not asking, why do you need this such a big mirror that could actually hit from space? Not stopping to ask the critical questions. This is like GPT, and we are like the mastermind. This is Professor Hathaway. We're like Professor Hathaway. We've got this great mastermind of a plan or a project or a thing that we're trying to produce. And GPT can generate text that can help you get to that goal, whether that be instructions for you or the actual text as the output product. It just eagerly beavering away, doesn't know what the actual end result is, not knowing you're trying to make a secret. Not the weapon, the goal doesn't have to be nefarious, but that's just sort of the idea there. So what is it doing? It's basically just predicting one word at a time. Simply put, it's read 10 trillion, GPT's 10 trillion words, basically. And so what it's got to do is it's got to funnel all those words down into one at a time for you, into maybe a couple hundred or a couple thousand. But what it's doing is it's essentially taking each word in the sentence. So if you give it these 7 words, the best thing about AI is its ability to, it's going to be just predicting. It makes a list of what's the most probable next word. 4.5% in all of those 10 trillion is learn. Then the next 3.5 predict, make, understand, and do. So it's just going to pick one of these words, and it's just going to pick the most probable word. Learn is its ability to learn. And then it's going to repeat that process, analyze the entire new string, and pick the next word as it goes on, as the most probable word. And now there's an issue called the zero temperature issue. Now this notion of it picking just the most probable word, you can vary this up a bit. You don't always have to pick the most probable word, because when you do that, it actually starts to get circled in on itself and starts to repeat itself sometimes in older models. And so the idea of temperature is something borrowed from physics, that, you know, you turn up the temperature, things start getting more energetic and jumbling things up, and different things can happen. So you turn up the temperature, you get more variation, so more creativity is the temperature's turned up a bit there, and then more less creative verbatim repetition is the temperature turned down. So important little, one of the biggest variables that go into making an open GPT completion is the temperature. So here's an example of a 0 temperature versus a temperature of 0.8. The 0 temperature is always the most probable, versus a higher temperature, which it's going to be more variation. So you can see that this temperature 0.8, just actually, if you sit here and compare the two, I much prefer the 0.8 one here. Now there is something, now language statistics we were going to touch on. There's interesting things that, okay, language is to be appreciated for very many reasons. One of which are the statistics in that linguists can find in language, because we can use those to make our language prediction models significantly better. And just a case in point is that same list that we were just looking at right here. Come to find out, pretty much any list follows the 1/n power law. So you can follow all the probable words. The next most probable word is follows the 1/n power law, which is a fantastic coincidence, and just a point in which just there's no point here other than to just appreciate language statistics, because you apply that to math and some very interesting things can happen. So where do these probabilities come from? Let's go for a very simple example, not just words, but just a single letter. So predicting, if we just, first you just look at, you have your big corpus of text, that 10 trillion I was talking about, then you look at it and then you take the probabilities from there. So you compare the Wikipedia entry for cats and the Wikipedia entry for dogs. You can see, they both have E as the most common letter, followed by A, and then a slight variation, T and O. Probably because cats and dogs, but by and large, you get the trend there. It's E's and A's and so on and so forth. There it is, turned into probability percentages, which then here's where the probabilities come from. Now, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but here's just an example of what we get if we generate a random sequence of letters with these probabilities. So it's sort of like a probabilistic English that's just gibberish, because it's not taking any other considerations here. And this is where the language statistics becomes apparent. So we can then do something different here. Instead of just looking at the probabilities of single letters, we can look at the probabilities of 2 letters together, or tuples. And so here we start to actually get a little bit closer to English. It's still not English, but we get, now we can start actually, no, I'm sorry. We'll get to the tuples shortly. This is adding spaces with this probability of English. So here we have, it's starting to look more like English in the sense that it's the space of typical English. Then we can space it more in the distribution of word lengths. So it's just using statistics to actually, we're just applying statistics at every level here to get closer and closer to English. So this is just another way to look at the same statistics where E is the highest, because this is where the tuples come in. So this is the same, these that we're looking at, I'm sorry, not tuples, but 2 grams. What this is showing is what are the probability of, if this letter is B, what is the next probability of the next letter being E? So we can see here, B, very low probability it's the next letter is C, but there's a very high probability that if the first letter is B, the next letter is E. For Q particularly, check out Q. There's almost no chance it's anything other than U. So if you've got a Q, you can do a U next and you're good to go. That's prediction. That has no idea the QU query, all those words. It's just throw that statistic in there and let it produce something. And now here we have all those combined few parameters I just outlined. And here we actually are starting to get English words in the gibberish. We have applied our spacing, we've applied our frequency of letters, we've even applied the 2 gram, and we start to even get words like Tesla in random. And again, remember, all it is random. Once you keep applying these tricks, as they learned, finally we get to the point to where so 2 gram versus 3 gram, 4 gram, 5 gram. Now we're actually getting full English words. Now, however, there's a problem though. You can't just gram it up to 1 million, because then the probabilities are just basically there's not enough atoms in the universe to make a computer that big. So that's where you hit a limit on this approach. So what do we do next? Let's get to the models. So what do we do next at that point? Because if we're able to predict words at a frequency that, okay, so a model. What we're looking at here is, oh gosh, what was his name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking out. The Tower of Pisa, he dropped the cannonball and measured it to see how long it would fall. The name is blanking. But this is a representation of his data that he would create. He would drop a cannonball out of the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
That Galileo.
Was it? Okay, good. All right,
Yeah.
someone. Okay, so Galileo going up the tower, dropping the cannonball and making marks. Now, what you can do with this model is, say you didn't explicitly visit, say the 12th, 5th floor, you can kind of extrapolate from the model what that data point would have been. So without having a full data set, you can kind of make a guesstimation. Now, there are better models, the blue line being a representation of the model and the dots being a representation of reality. And there can be very poor models, right, that are only right like a broken clock twice a day. Yeah, so that's what models are. So we're dealing with a language model. So it's just making predictions, and it's actually pretty darn good. So what was the task here? This was AT&T Labs in the 90s. They had the task, AT&T, to identify, was it written into, yes, to take written numbers and determine what number is that, to actually match it up. And so, one approach could be you could have a bunch of samples of that digit, right? And if it matches, it matches. But I mean, there's almost no, 1 pixel off. There's almost no, and it's an endless data set essentially. So let me see here 1 second. Because there was another meaning here. Okay, I remember. Okay, so the point being here is this is a modeling physics. That's one thing. Physics is a bunch of formulas. That's easy. But what about modeling a human-like task, which is identifying a number? Yes, it works. Here what we have is an example of a model that starts to get it wrong, but the key lesson here is, what do we mean by wrong? Because I'm sure if everyone's heard about ChatGPT, you've heard about hallucinations. This might be a perfect example of that, but is it really? So if you give GPT or never mind. They gave the model a progressively blurred 2, and at some point it starts to identify the 2s as 1s, right? Well, now you and I would say, well, that's wrong. These are supposed to be 2s. But if you were just to look at this one alone without this data set in front of you, you might think that that's just a 1. And so it's a very human thing to look at that and to say, oh, they're all going to be 2s. So perhaps it's the task that we have given the machine that is wrong, and therefore the output is wrong. And so if you change the input to the right input or the right question, then you'll get the right answer. So that's one thing to think about is it really wrong, or am I giving it sort of the wrong input? That's just a visual act. This is a representation of this neural net that they ended up building at AT&T Labs. And what I find interesting about this is it actually looks like a human eye. That, you know, the surface of the eye that kind of chunks down the information into a sort of a stream of information. But that's a representation of this is the pixels. This is a representation of every single pixel here, and then chunking it down. So I find that interesting. Okay, so that's sort of the model stuff. So now the neural nets and the notion of attractors. Attractors are cool, easy to understand. This is the way that they did it. They added the notion of an attractor. So the platonic one, you might say, or the perfect one, or the thing that looks most like a 1, that they started to make an association of things that look like each other would sort of gravitate towards that 1 spot. And then the things that sort of look like a 2 can sort of gravitate towards a 2 spot. And then once you have this, you can start to assign a probability of what this might be. And so that was the solution. Very interesting. Here's another representation of an attractor. These little points would be the attractors, and I forget the name of the lines here, the dividing lines. Watershed, I think it's called a Venori diagram. But essentially, imagine this is like a coffee shop, and you have the rule that you always want to go to the closest coffee shop to me, wherever you are. So that will be this one. If you're right here, that would be this one. And so you're attracted to that coffee shop if all coffee shops are equal to you. Now, here's another way you can think about. Now, this is how you sort of apply the notion of attractors. Suppose you have a positive 1 attractor and a 0 attractor and a negative 1 attractor. This is just if your answer lands anywhere in here, it's going to default to a 1. If your answer lands anywhere in here, your answer is going to default to a 0. So you can have sort of like 3 switch solution here. And this is just the same thing visualized in a 3D representation. And you can kind of think of this as Galileo. I like to think of this as Galileo, dropping the cannonball and getting his measurements in different locations, because I think we'll get to a point where, yeah, okay, I think the next slide. So how do you use the notion of an attractor with a neural net, or how do they work together? Essentially, you have your weights. It's been a long time. But if your X and Y are 0.5 and negative 0.8, that will be a 0.5 and a negative 0.8. That falls firmly in this -1 category. So that's what's going on with just the math here. This is just multiplication here. But that's essentially what's going on. So you have 2 inputs. This is a neural net that has 2 inputs and 1 output. So the 2 inputs, this is a model of that neural net, which will represent those outputs. And then so actually, not quite. So this is let's just say this is a perfect representation of reality. This is a representation of what all the different possible weights coming in will produce. This is what, if you put in this variable, this X and Y coordinate, this is what you will actually get. This just is just topologically showing you what you would get. And this is what what we want to do is we want to have a perfect representation of reality. So what you can see here is that this model does not quite get there. You can see that this model, this particular model with these particular weights, can do the +1 pretty well. It nails that pretty well, and it's got that, you know, that very, it's not quite as sheer clean cut, but it does pretty horribly over here, right? Now, what you can do is you can, a more sophisticated model can get a more closer representation of reality. So a small 2 input, 1 output model, which is 1 layer of weights. It's, you know, an attempt, right? It's trying, versus a more sophisticated. This is even more sophisticated than the one we were looking at here. I think it's got just 1 additional node. And it is able to get a real clean cut. Look at that, just 1 additional node, a real clean cut on this 0 point. Does that
So
make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, is that what's happening with every single iteration of the new ChatGPT when it comes from 3, 4, 5?
Except it's 175 billion weights. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool breakdown. Understand that.
Yeah.
Do you want to start getting into how you started
Okay.
from?
Sure. I'm almost at the end, so that's a good
Okay.
time. That's basically it. I don't have to go into the rest of
No,
it.
yeah, no, it's really interesting to see
Yeah.
how it's all broken
But
down with the machine
it
learning. I
actually
didn't know that with
helps.
that.
It
Yeah.
actually helps understand. One thing that's interesting is long story short, it was just one of the breakthroughs in one of the papers. The more dimensional space, the higher dimensional space you're working in, the more of a chance you're able to find your way out of a rut. So what this is a representation of is, like, you can think of this like a topological map where these are like sort of mountain peaks, and this is like a mountain lake. And so this is this we jumped into machine learning, but this is just a representation of it, a type of machine learning. This is sort of just, you know, like set up the thing and let the machine play itself to learn how to play chess, right? You just drop it anywhere in here, and the red is a bad answer and a blue is a perfect answer. And these are all the perfect answers that this particular algorithm wants to achieve. And so what this is it's training the model to go down. It's hard to jump into it, but long story short, this would be finding some sort of local minimum, but maybe in a valley that is inescapable because it's just trying to achieve the most efficient outcome, just like a lightning strike, trying to find the best answer from wherever it lands out. So they run this a million times and it keeps finding. That's how they come up with this graph in the first place. But the note is that whereas a 2-dimensional space, this is an imperceivable chasm where if you find over here, you'll never learn about these potential answers. That's kind of what this is representing. But you start adding multiple dimensions of understanding, which I can get to in a minute. You find other ways to roll out of your local minimum into another local minimum and escape that local minimum. It's very interesting, but that was sort of a breakthrough in one of the papers that there's like 3 different breakthroughs that actually led to being able to make GPT what it is today. So that's that. Now I'll move into what is it you wanted? Any questions on that? Right, really quick is it a good time? We're right at the middle. 2 minutes or no minutes if no one has questions.
I think that was really interesting. No, you should definitely break down now how you started it, but like with
How
what
I
you were
sta-
able to create, like what you were able to create from the bottom,
Okay,
from
so
brand new. Because I think that's the thing. A lot of people, if they have, like I said, like Liz mentioned, if they have ChatGPT experience, it's probably like signing in for the first time and what do I do now? So yeah,
sure,
like if you could go over the prompting, because I know you have a lot of experience on how to create and build the prompts.
sure. So, well, I'll just show a quick one of the aha moments for me was, so I deploy with Elise. I work with Elise. All of our new hires go through an automation stream that I have put together called Slipstream. It just delivers the training videos for that week, and then for the right week for the right time, right? However, we had an issue with it where we had a server update where actually all the users could not log in unless they cleared their local cache. Nothing I could fix on my server. Every user, they wanted to log in again, had to clear their cache. So kind of touchy, send 100 emails out. Got to do it quick and early before, too many people get annoyed. So I had the idea, well, why don't I just kind of describe the situation to GPT and then, let it kind of help me write an email, but make it a little quippy. All I asked was just make it a little quippy. And this was the result. It says, "Good morning, Slipstreamer." So already I was like, oh, what a win. I've never even thought of that, calling them all Slipstreamers. If you're receiving this email, it's either because you're currently rocking the Slipstream training program, or you're one of the rebels who haven't yet completed the quizzes. We won't judge, but we'll remind you to get it done. And it goes on and tells our server's been upgraded. However, with great upgrades come great glitches, and we've discovered one that affects all of you. And we go through and give some instructions. Step one, clear your browsers. Well, no, two options. Option one was clear your browser's cache and relog into everything. Ugh, we know. Oh my goodness, right? And then the other option is embrace your inner edge user and try an alternative browser to access Slipstream when you need to record your progress. And Elise, after 5 minutes of sending this email, you replied and you're like, oh my God, that's so funny. And I can't keep a secret. I had to tell you immediately how I did it. So yeah, I remember that. So that was kind of just this could be really useful. And I even thought like this could teach a lot of people a lot of things. And I was watching YouTube videos of folks who, that's funny. I see Brandon has just joined, but his name is Elise. Brandon, what are you doing? All right. So, or is just my Zoom is messing up. All right. So, where was I, Brandon?
Yeah, just going through the email, creating the quippy.
So I started making so I saw some folks making, they were making, little video games with GPT, right? So I was like, well, what can I make? So I decided to make an Android app, a GPT tutor, where I prompted it to be a tutor, always ask questions to the user because, GPT doesn't do that. And then at the end, it would summarize the conversation and then give a result to like as if I were a tutor. To have the conversation go to the student, what was the conversation? So kind of a little bitty use case for it. And I did it in about 6 hours. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing what I was able to do. And now, what do I mean I did it? I followed like they did on YouTube, just to watch Matt Wolf. Let's actually take a minute because it's actually, if we spent 15 minutes and y'all picked a bunch of the right folks to subscribe, that would not be a waste of your time. Matt Wolf, subscribe to him because he's actually one of the fastest rising AI content creators on YouTube right now, but definitely subscribe to him, follow his updates. But he made a side scrolling game just like that. You press spacebar, you jump and you collect your coins, but he does it all on screen in 30 minutes. And so I just watched his approach and I took his approach and I said, I wasn't making a game, I was making an Android app. And 6 hours later, I had it. So then after that, I was like, well, why should this just be in a single window or with a single user? Why can't this be sort of like in a collaborative experience? Multiplayer GPT, as it were. So that was where I got the idea to make a Slack bot. Slack is a business chat tool, just like Discord or Skype. You just have your business channels. But I made up. I with GPT, I just started from step one. What I wanted, I had no idea how to do it. I said I wanted to make a Slack bot integrated with OpenAI, GPT. Let's go. And it said, okay, you're going to need Node.js. You're going to need this. You're going to need that. I didn't know what any of these tools were. I just started downloading. I was like, how do I do that? How do I do step one? How do I do step two? And I just step by step until I had that installed. If I had an error, I would take the error, put it in GPT, take my code, put it in GPT. I don't even say anything else. I literally just have the error and the code. And then it starts saying possible problems. I have a list I can choose from. I can try each one at a time until I finally find a solution that works. And I was able to build it again in about 10 hours. I had it working. Many of hours after that, improving it and things. But I mean, here's I mean, what I'm trying to remember the right channel because yeah, so it should be fine. Nope. So this is now, we'll get to what it is today. But this is a basic example of it working. You can ask it a question in your Slack, which is a group channel, and it will give you, oh my goodness, it's got a bit of an attitude still. Oh my
It gets
goodness.
really sassy with certain people. I'm still convinced David slightly messes with it because some of the answers I get are very off the
Yeah,
wall, and yeah, so you just got to get used to
yeah,
talking to it. But
yeah,
but like to reiterate, because I just want to make sure like
yeah.
everyone knows the point with this,
This
how
is,
with
yeah.
how David created this, like this was truly, like he said, he went into this like, well, let me just see what I can do, and not knowing it.
I
And I feel
haven't
like he
stopped
doesn't
yet.
emphasize on this. So this isn't, David's not like, yes, everyone can tell David like is smart, very smart, but this wasn't a project that he's known for years and the typical like, I've been programming, this is like
This is
something I
four
could do in my
months. This
sleep.
was 4 months.
This is he woke up one day and was like, let me just see what I can do, and he's been tweaking it ever since. So I've
And it
seen all the
evolved over,
iterations of it.
yes.
Yeah, I've seen all the iterations from the beginning up
And
till
I can go
now.
through,
And
and I can go through some of those
yeah,
iterations too, because
you should do a, like, if you just open up chat too and just do a demo of like basic, like how do you
well,
create an
what
outline for those.
what I would like to
Yeah.
do is actually go through one of the one of the last pieces I built, which should be an interesting piece of the puzzle to talk about. So I'll quickly go to this is sort of a diagram of the architecture that I have since created at this point. What it has evolved to again, and just built it with GPT's help. This is not something I could have ever in my wildest dreams have thought of that I could create by myself. But with the $25 a month subscription, I've got a pocket developer, the cheapest developer money can buy. Never asks for a raise, never asks for time off. My goodness, what I can create with that level of camaraderie. All right, so we have the front end website, which I can open up later. It's connected to a Google Firestore cloud database that uses Google Auth, so a user can just click to log in, so they log in with Google. I've connected it with Stripe for the payment system, so a user from my website can immediately make a payment, purchase the bot once they made an account. It's also connected, the database is also connected to the bot, so that when a user makes a purchase, the bot is updates automatically versus anything manual having to happen. And what the bot does is it just makes an OpenAI API call, and the bot is connected to multiple Slack workspaces. So that's what I built. And I was going to go somewhere else with that though, but this was important to get an idea of. It's a lot, guys, so it's hard to remember. Oh, okay, so yes, the encryption. So the final piece of the puzzle was I was using my own API key. So every customer API call is going to be on my API key, and so, well, I just build a customer, right? So I have to build all the whole billing and the metrics, and boy, when I actually realized it was about double of the amount of work that I currently had already put into the project, and I came up with an alternative solution. Well, why don't I just allow the users to input their own secret key on the website. So of course comes with its own problem of I'm dealing with a secret key and I have to transmit it like from the architecture I showed. The architectures, this is also not quite complete because it's also got AWS Secret Manager that is connected to the back end onto the bot. This is full stack development. Like I'm a full stack developer now, and I learned how to do it in 4 months with GPT. Like the implications of that are profound because I just have a background in code. I would say I'm a script kiddie at best, but with that background level of knowledge, which anyone can attain, I didn't graduate from a computer science degree. So it's, yeah. Now, so the piece of the puzzle was getting that secret key from here to the AWS. Now, you don't just make a direct connection from your front end to your secret manager. It's a silly idea. Even GPT knows that. So what I intended to do was obviously I had 2 options here. I could pass it to the Firestore database and from Firestore get it to AWS, or I could pass it to the bot and get it to AWS. And I elected to go with the bot. And so with GPT in about 4 or 5 hours, I built from the front end to get this field to be able to add. Been good that 90% of developers can leverage and become full stack in the way that I have then, because I believe those numbers track with me. But yeah, I got the key to go all the way to where I wanted it to go to my secrets, but it was in the clear. It was transmitting, at least it was transmitting from, let me close that one, from here to here in the clear, because from here to AWS is, your cookie cutter AWS code that you just copy paste into your backend. So I then went to GPT and well, first of all, I didn't even, so in that process, when I was building that handling of the secret, that route, it's keep in mind, it's telling me, keep in mind your secret key should be stored securely, should not be hard coded. It's also important that communications over HTTPS. So early on, I already knew this in the back of my mind because of where I work and stuff, but I just wanted to make sure that I pointed this out here with you guys is even if I didn't know that, if I were doing my due diligence and not being that lawyer who just cited GPT court cases in the courtroom, I actually do my due diligence and read every paragraph because every word it uses is important. If it says, I'm assuming your environment variables are this, hone in on that, analyze its assumption and say, oh no, its assumption is going to be wrong. I need to actually provide additional information. What you can do is you can go back up to your prompt and edit your prompt. And you'll see I have done that. I'll illustrate that shortly and provide that additional information. It's like you can see the future because you have, okay. So all that fundamental stuff can be boiled down into conceptualizing GPT input output as a single page. So you have a single page with words on it, right? And so your input is part of the first paragraph on the page. So my question to GPT is the input. These are my question. How do I do something? And then the response is actually still, the response is actually still part of this page that we can conceptualize. So you got your input and then your output on a single page, because each input output response is a single page. And each page is this new language, this new alphabet that we are inventing with GPT. Think of it like a Japanese alphabet, because I like to think of it that way, because you can conceptualize as a single character, but one new line on that character has a whole new meaning, right? And so by adding one new sentence in your input, you can get a whole different output. So that's what prompt engineering is actually engineering your prompt in that way to get, because in your mind, you have a particular output you desire. In my use case here, it's a particular line of code that will work for what I want it to do. So if the code I got doesn't work, I tweak my input. And then until eventually, because this is a model, this can make any potential combination of letters in that context size. What is it that you want it to make? I ask the question, what's the most valuable thing you can get out of that page, the answer is code. And so that's what I opted to spend a few months seeing what are the limits of this thing, and I have not found them yet. So much so that encryption. There's a old commercial, an Apple commercial where their computer was being protected by a ring of army tanks, and the narrator says encryption so strong that the army has listed it as a munition and you can't export it, but that Intel chip, it's harmless. That was their advertisement. Well, the problem was the encryption, right? Well, what did I do here? What are we talking? So let me get to it. So here's where after finally getting to the few hours of getting the secret transmitted properly, I'm afraid we're sending it in the clear. Can you review my code to see if that's the case? And if so, provide some solutions. So that's my question. Now, all I have to do is give it my code. So what I provided, and what I do, and I take a note of this format because I came up with it on my own, and I have seen on YouTube OpenAI developers using the same thing. So it works for them, it works for me, and so it'll work for you. I just treat it like an HTML tag. And what I'm doing here is I'm identifying what the text is. So because for GPT, and why? So because for GPT, it's all text, it's all just words. And so what are these words? What is this paragraph? Is this stage notes? Is it is this your narration? Is this your inner monologue? Is this a document that you copied and pasted? What are these words? Because it's all just words to GPT. So what you can do is you can identify what this section of words are. And so what I am doing here is I'm identifying with these opening brackets, and I'll show you the second half of the HTML tag at the bottom, is I'm saying that everything in here is from my user dashboard.js file. But I could just as easily say these are lab instructions or whatever, pick your context. I'm providing metadata. I'm providing additional context of what these words are. It's very important. Otherwise, like I said, GPT is like, well, what is this? Versus what is this, right? Versus like, this is clearly different text, but it's all just words. Okay. So here's me just copying the route. Now, the trick here is context size, and it's only an issue of now context size is getting bigger and bigger, but context size is that total input output response because they're combined. There's a reason why they're on the same page, because if you use more words in your input, then that's less words available for the output. Just to keep that, just because it's all one, because it's predicting each word one at a time. So let's not go into the theory. Let's keep on the practice. So I put in the front end code for my user dashboard. You saw this is the user dashboard and this is the code for it. You can see yeah. So continuing. So I just give it my user dashboard. It says, yes, you're right. It's being sent unencrypted. Here's the code that sends it. Here's a possible solution. So I am sending HTTPS, but of course, defense in depth. I didn't want to just keep sending my secret in the clear. I was undergoing this on purpose. I was looking for alternatives, more options, and encryption. That was the one I wanted to go with. It suggested you could use a library like Crypto.js to encrypt it. It's client side. And I said, I like the Crypto.js solution. Great, let's use Crypto.js to encrypt. First, you need to install it. So I install it into my project. There's the command I write in my console to do it. Next, you import it into your front end. Then you need to actually define the secret key. Then you need to encrypt it. Then you need to change the code where it was before. And then here's the updated code. Cool. Okay, well, that worked, except now my backend needs to unencrypt it because I received it and I could print it and it was an encrypted. It wasn't a secret key anymore. It was an encryption. It was a hash, whatever. So first try, or no, it wasn't first try. Hold on. No. This is a good example. Okay. Okay. Oh, hold on. So first I discovered a bug and then I corrected that. That's separate. Okay. I tried installing crypto.js. I just give it the result. I get errors. And that's it. I don't even do it. I don't even say anything else. I just say I tried installing it. It says this error is related to some conflicts in my project. There's some other package. So solve this issue. You just gotta work on your packages and get them up to date, aligned or whatever. So went through some of those, got it done. Let's see. Hold on. What is this? This is, oh, probably, yeah, nothing there. I probably just interrupted it or something. But this is that was the result, and I performed these command lines. And then, wow, okay, now got it to work. Align my thing. So basically, there was no issue in the code. There was an issue with my libraries, which I corrected. But the code, first try, worked, which was actually worth saying, wow. However, my backend, now I need to work on the backend. So I'm just going piece by piece. I started giving it my backend code related to the that secret route. And then, so, okay, now you need to install Crypto Dome, Crypto Doom. I don't know what it is. So I don't even know if it was real. In fact, I think it wasn't real. I think this was a hallucination. And I ended up going with another library that wasn't a hallucination. The lesson there is that when it does what we like, or okay, when it does what we don't like, we call it a hallucination. But when it does what we like, we call it creativity. So it's back to that you're asking it the wrong question thing. But the key lesson here is also being patient and persistent, because the first time through it gave me a fake library. Google had nothing, it didn't exist. Google had no documentation on this name of the library. And I literally just said that library doesn't exist. Can you give me one that does exist? Maybe we'll find that language in here. As we scroll down, we've got only a few minutes left, but it found me. The second one was real. Okay, so persistence pays off, right? But you can see we're doing an IV to it. I mean, I don't have to know what it's doing. All right, that's the real secret here. So if that Apple computer was worth protecting in the past, we always thought when the AI came, surely the last thing we would do is connect it to the internet, right? Like that would be ridiculous, right? No. That was the first thing that. Okay, anyway. Okay, yeah, just back and forth. You can just see the back and forth. Let's see.
So David, do we have time to take a couple of questions really quick?
Yes, please.
So I know Brandon asked in the chat, does OpenAI charge per API call?
They do. And it's extremely cheap. They do.
Okay. So David, question from me. Do you believe the singularity is past? And if so, how are we ever going to know?
Oh, so past. I don't maybe the capabilities are already here. We just have not figured out how to use it. I don't know. I don't think we're past yet, because the past I would say we need some sort of level of agency here in this machine. I don't think we're at that point yet. I think at the end of the decade, we might be having a different conversation. I think we might be that close, but no, not yet.
I don't know. I kind of want to like mention quickly the other use cases, because I feel like with this going over, like David went really in depth with how we use it, or how he was able to use it with this. But I think that's a big thing that people don't realize, that the possibilities are like truly endless. That the other day I was on a flight and the guy next to me was a dermatologist on he was a little bit older, so like all this technology stuff, I know, like he was like, I don't really understand any of the AI stuff and how I would apply it to my job. So I was talking to him, and that was the first thing he said to me. He goes, well, then tell me. how would I use this for my job? So I went into the applications of, we use it for educational purposes currently, is that you can quickly open up a new chat and just type in, I need it. And that's what I did for him the other day. He was working on a paper with a specific topic and the outcome. He had his own data and stuff. And that's what people don't understand. This isn't here to replace you. This is here to just capitalize. So now instead of one person, you turn into two people with the same exact, like probably less work, because now you're not going as crazy. But I was able to, in 5 seconds, we were landing. The plane was still slightly in the air. So I just got service. I was able to create a new chat and just say, I need an outline on this topic. And it created a great outline for him, talking about what he should mention, what everything. And he was just like, this is amazing. Like, I'm going to like, yeah, he's like, I'm going to reference you. And I was like, this thing is just so cool.
Yeah.
So that's why I think a lot of people have a hard time relating it to
Oh,
their current business
me
model.
jump
So
in
like
there.
why they need it.
Let me jump in there because I have a very similar story with the manager of my gym. Sweet old man. He's got pictures of his past where he was like Arnold Schwarzenegger with gold medals, looking serious. And I start talking to him about GPT, and he's like, "How do I even use it?" I actually get him to log in, and I just right in front of him, I ask, I'm a gym owner, manager of a gym. Give me some ideas on how I can promote my business or whatever." And he gives like 10 different things, and the guy's jaw just drops, and he just like reads through. He's like, "These aren't half bad," and that was it. Job was done. I saw the result. I saw the reaction from him, and I was like, "Okay, I don't need to speak anymore." And then a few days later, he comes to me. He's like, "David, I just have to tell you, I'm so grateful. Thank you. I started using it because he was in a relationship and he was dating, and he started using it for ideas to go on dates." And he's like, I'm like, I didn't even think about that, but good on you. I mean, that's the whole point, is whatever you want to use it for, it is able to do that. That's actually the point. And he said, I've never felt like I've been on the cutting edge before, or however he said it, but that was the sentiment. He's like, never in my life have I felt like I'm on the cutting edge, but he does now. And I'm like, good on you, man. All right. So absolutely. It's not that hard. Everyone can speak. This is like you're speaking to a human. It's like the level that we needed it to be. So this on my screen, I was just another use case is I
Oh wait,
actually
hold on. Carla
yeah,
has a question. Can she ask? Carla, you can go ahead.
please.
Sorry. David, this is amazing. Thank you so much for the level of detail here. This is probably the best like background that I've had as far as like understanding Chat GPT. I've had some experience with becoming better with the prompts, but I still have some questions regarding, so I have the Chat GPT premium, but I guess my concern is about the data that I use, that I put in there. Is that my own, like I guess I'm just concerned about how this is my information, or being cautious about what information is out there. Does what I put out there become part of the bigger model, or is that, how do I protect?
It depends on your settings.
Okay.
The general rule of thumb is if it's free, you are the product, right? So ChatGPT, there is a free version where you don't have control over the data, I believe. But then there's the premium version like you have, like I have. And there is a setting in there. They do have a if you go to the bottom left here and then go to the settings, they have a data controls section where you can actually disable chat history and training, because yes, your data will be used by them however they see fit, as does Facebook, and name your poison. But you have the option to disable that. The trade-off is that they won't waste their hard drive space storing your chat histories because they are of no value to them. So you can come in here and turn that off if you choose. Here's the option to do it. And then yeah, you don't get the chat history, which is some people. It would matter. It would matter for me for actually I couldn't. No.
I
No.
like the history.
I could
So,
find ways around it, but it's not a, I don't worry. I don't worry about it. I don't worry about it.
yeah.
I just think about, I just treat it like I treat emails, right? Like
Mhm,
I don't send customer data via email. You know what I mean? Like to external email
mhm.
addresses. I don't do that. Why would I send customer information to this little bot here? I just treat it the same
Right.
way. It shouldn't be too much more.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So, so because I'm actually going to use it, I'm trying to use it to, we're rolling out a new product for, to the company. And my group is like, we have to create training documents and quick guides and stuff like that. And the product we're using is ServiceNow vulnerability response. So it's like, I'm trying to create, like, do this quick, do it in a nice way. Yeah.
Well, then let
But
me
very
get into this quick use case really quick, and then we can take more
okay.
questions because this is Elise. You and I did this training together in Plano. And I'm very grateful that you suggested. I would have just in the back of my mind said, yeah, I know my bot is awesome. I know it's great. But you had the great idea to actually ask for a feedback form, and I actually put one together and actually solicited feedback from the students. And I just, it's just a Google feedback form. I copied and pasted the Google feedback form and the results. Um, and I got it to produce the language from those results, like 40% of respondents, whatever, what have you. But just telling it like, what did I do in a paragraph, and then giving it the copy paste the results out of the spreadsheet essentially. And then I started working with that language. That's a great blog post, but let's convert it to some SEO optimized case study. Let's act not a blog post, but a case study, right? They're different, right? They're formatted differently. And so I give it I've formatted the language, right? I've looked at it and corrected things. I don't, from the first round and put it back in. And then, case study revolutionizing, that looks similar. Or where was that? Right there, right? So piecing it together, it's not a one-shot thing. It's an iteration. You get pieces that you like and you use it, and then and then once I had the language I liked, I even just give it my code and then get it to put the language in for me, right? Because again, I'm actually not a developer, whether you believe me or not. I'm not. So yeah, so I just just rinse and repeat. Okay, so any more questions? Just getting it to produce all the way from like the raw Google form survey results all the way to the front end website, right? With the statistics and stuff. So how about that, right? For producing content.
Carla, what
That's
kind of
great.
stuff are you trying to create with it? Like, what are you hoping to get out of it?
Sorry, I'm on my cell phone and the computer too. So I'm hoping to create, like, we have to create like different documentation for different roles of people that will be using the product, like, so remediation owners, and kind of do a walkthrough of what their screens would look like and how they would use the product. Just kind of more like a process document. And I have like ServiceNow has a document, they have all the document, all the pretty stuff, but it's very specific, and we want to make it our own. So by placing our information in it. So like one of the things I would like to do is create like a quick doc, like a quick sheet for someone that just wants to, hey, I want to resolve this vulnerability. What screens do I need, or what screens do I click? And it's just like a one sheet, or like a reference sheet.
So
Mhm.
there's a functionality coming very soon from OpenAI that is the multimodality, multimodal model. What that means is basically it can see, it can interpret images. And so where you're going is right up that alley, because very soon in the near future, if not, maybe it's already available with the code interpreter. I think you said, I think you said you have you can come in. Where is it at? Is it in here? Beta features? Yeah. So code interpreter should be available for all premium members. I think you can give it an image now. Yep, image.
Oh,
So, so,
okay.
so you can give it an image of your interface and then ask it to help make a guide for a particular thing. And then it's not a one shot. You'll have to give many multiple images, and there might be some things where it's still easier for you to do. But I was pulling this up because I did sort of something similar without this new capability of the imaging. So that would be new and something you could definitely experiment with. Yeah, I guess
Can
we're
you-
over, so I don't want to keep.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Can you go back to that screen where you said the
Uh-huh.
image, just under settings?
Ah.
Oh, code and take
Yeah, yep. Beta
Okay,
features.
great.
Yeah, and then when you have a new chat, you go to GPT-4 and then it's gonna appear right here.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that would have been useful for me because what I was doing over here was so the human task to create these labs, everyone's done labs, step-by-step instructions, was to actually write out the step-by-step instructions, and the step-by-step instructions, the result was to create a playbook. Each task, setting it up, clicking the right things, typing the right things to create a playbook, right? So the human task was to write out every single word and eventually to make all the screenshots. But once I had those two, just the words, once I had all of the steps, I could literally just copy my entire lab detailed instructions and put it into GPT and say, can you give me a high level instructions of these? And there it goes. Boom. My whole 12 pages of words condensed down into just, a dozen actual steps, which are actually like very, very, very good steps, high level steps of the lab. So if you maybe are, not, I don't, so, but then that's not all. Take the same detailed instructions. Now give me a scenario for this lab. Friday morning, your SOC team, there's an alert flickering Cortex XIM. I actually get goosebumps, honestly, reading these things. And then that's not all. I ask it now, give me some learning objectives that they'll get out of this lab, right? And then once I've got 4 labs with all of these products created, I can then take all of the scenarios in one input. I had to do a lot of inputs to get all 4. Then I take all 4 and put it in, make all these 4 coincide with each other, like make them the same story, right? Make the continuous story here. Boom, all of them changed, copy paste. Then they now give me an overview scenario of all 4, right, on a single page, right? There you go. So it's just get back and forth, and it's sort of like generation of creation. It's not just a one-off. Oh, you didn't do what I wanted on the first try. Well, you don't find the Google results in the first try when you're trying to answer a question. So what do you expect? And also humans aren't correct every time you ask them a question either. So what's your critique there? So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for to do. So no, this is good. Thank you.
Yeah, and it is inspiring to see the potential, because here's an interesting statistic. I've been looking for this research study, but I've heard about it. When eBay and those kinds of platforms were showing up, they did a study, like how many users are actually engaging on this platform with malicious intent? That was the question. How many of these users are bad users, bad actors? Come to find out, in a platform where anonymous is easy, it's easy to make a fake email and try to scam someone with a fake picture of a MacBook, right? Turns out the numbers across the platforms was like something like 8,000 to 1. For every 8,000 good users, there's one bad actor out there trying to be malicious. So that's an interesting metric. You would think maybe 1 out of 10 or 1 out of, we don't know, we're humans. 8,000 to 1's a big difference. And so when you get this proliferation of tools that can do anything, if you can make code, you can do anything you want, 0 marginal cost. My whole project costs nothing to run, by the way. The API, it costs nothing, almost nothing to run. I lost my train of thought, but it's late. That happens when it gets late. Yeah,
David shuts down like the bot.
yeah.
He hits a limit.
Yeah.
Starts hallucinating.
Sorry, you've reached your 600 tweets available for the day. I'm
Yeah,
afraid we're gonna have to shut you down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fine.
Great. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. I'm sure David would love to hear from you. So, if you have any lingering questions or you want to get in contact, feel free to email us at WiCySmilitary@WiCyS.org, and we'll be happy to pass along your questions to David through Elise or whatever have you. And maybe we'll invite him back to do some new projects or go through something else. We're always looking for folks to come speak with us. So. Thank you so much, David, for going through this and getting into some of the technical stuff. I know a lot of folks are kind of like really intimidated by ChatGPT. So I think it's always good to see folks come in and say, I have no coding background. How did I make an entire Android app work for me? So that's really great.
Yeah. So Matt Wolf for sure. Just subscribe there and you get started. They'll pop up in your feeds. Also, this is the next best channel. When his videos come out, they really matter.
Maybe I'll get a list of resources
Yeah.
you recommend too, and I'll attach it.
Okay.
Something. But yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it, David.
Send it in our follow-up email for the day.
Yeah.
And thanks, David, for being a friend of WiCyS Military. We're always excited to learn about new things. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. Have a fantastic evening, and hopefully we will see you next month when we have Jeff from Clicked on here.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.